Morning Year 10, welcome to week 2 of English. Right, we're going to crack on with the Christmas Carol. Make sure that you've got your text and your fact books in front of you. Get your ruler and highlighter, something to write with as well, so you can copy the annotations when we get to it. Let's start off with then a quick quiz. See how much you can remember from the lessons that we did last week. Pause the video. Now I want you to try and do it without looking at the text. See if you can do it from memory for me. So pause it now and then try and answer those questions. Okay, so these are the answers. If you've not got all of them right, all you need to do is go back and either reread Stave 1 or listen to it or watch it again. As I always say in the lessons, we need to be reading a text about 3 times before we commit it to memory. So just keep making sure that you're going back through it, that you're rereading it, that you're knowing exactly what the plot is covering. Today then we're going to be focusing on Stave 2. I know last week some of you couldn't click on the link, so I've put these links in the description below in the video so you can just click on them straight there. But it's Stave 2 that we're focusing on today, and if you did watch the film version you can carry on watching it up until about 50 minutes. Right, in this stave then we've got the Ghost of Christmas Past that's introduced. And what this ghost does is it's representing Scrooge's memories. So if you just find the introduction of the ghost in your text, and then I want you to have a go at highlighting any words or phrases that suggest the youth or childhood, any one that suggests old age, and then if you can, any phrases that suggest innocence or knowledge. I'll go through them, so if you are struggling you can just keep going and copy my annotations. Otherwise pause it here and have a go at that. Right, these are the quotes that I've got then, so if you just make sure that you've highlighted those ones that I've done in red, and then we can go through and add some notes to them. So this ghost is a childlike figure, and I think that suggests he sees the best in Scrooge's past. He's still innocent, he's not got that cynicism that we get as we get older. But it's a contradictory appearance because he's also like an old man, and this aged appearance suggests that he's been there with Scrooge throughout all of his past. He's seen a lot of his memories. You've got this image of flowers here, so holly and flowers, and this is suggesting again that people should treat people nicely throughout the year. So you've got the winter with the holly and then the flowers from spring. And remember what I was harping on about last week about this whole social reform and Dickens wanting to write the book to try and change people's attitudes towards helping the poor. So this is linking in with that a little bit here. We've got this imagery of light as well, and this use of symbolism is suggesting that the ghost is going to lead Scrooge towards being a better person. So light means good, dark means bad, and if you contrast that to Scrooge's introduction in Stave 1 where everything is dark, you've got that use of contrast there. And I think because he's wearing this white dress, you could almost argue that it's a little bit of a biblical description, so reminding us of Jesus in a way. And again, that's linking in with this idea of religion, and this ghost is trying to help Scrooge become a better person. Again, linking in with that social reform. As soon as you can find an example, if you can just keep mentioning social reform when we get on to writing essays, it really does help to boost those answers. Okay, so the first memory that this ghost shows Scrooge is his childhood. So if you find this extract in your texts, and then there's a couple of quotes that I would like you to highlight. Now this first one is using the senses, so the use of smell, and this sensual imagery is showing how powerful the nature is. Even though he was a boy, and even though that this is when he was still at school, he can still remember this memory, which means that it was important. And because he's aware of all the senses, it contrasts with his life in Stave 1. It's probably showing that he was happy at this time. And straight away we see the effect that this memory is having on Scrooge. It says your lip is trembling, suggesting that he's about to cry. And again it's linking in with that redemption, linking in with that change. And the narrator is allowing us to create sympathy for us here. Okay, so we're creating more sympathy for Scrooge. We can see that he's starting to perhaps regret the way that he has become and treated other people. Moving on then, if we find these quotes, use of the word solitary. It's quite interesting here. It suggests that Scrooge has been lonely for all of his life, and maybe this could sort of describe the way that he doesn't really like Christmas now. If he was alone at Christmas when he was a child, that's probably why he wants to be alone at Christmas as an adult. So it does create sympathy even more. He's sobbing, look, so he's still physically crying now. He's remembering how it was to be alone. And then he emphasises this more, Dickens does, by saying he's still weeping to see his poor forgotten self as he used to be. So the memory still affects him despite it being years later. And then just towards the end of this extract, then the softening influence. Remember how he was described in Stave 1 as being hard and sharp as flint? And this is a real contrast with that. So straight away, within about 3 or 4 pages into the book, Scrooge is starting to change, and this is because of what the ghost is showing him. On this part of the text then, what Scrooge is doing is he's remembering the imaginary characters, like his pretend friends that he used to play with. Because he was so lonely, the only company he had was from the characters that he read in the books. And if you remember Ali Baba's from Arabian Nights, the 40 Thieves, all those kind of stories. So he's remembering those and the people that kept him company when he was alone in school over Christmas. So despite it being a sad memory, he's still got some happiness from it. He uses the word poor boy and is showing already that he's starting to empathise with others, again linking in with his change and redemption. And maybe because he's seen himself neglected, he's starting to show regret and scaring the carol singer away from Stave 1. So if you just make sure that you have got those quotes. If I'm going too quick, just keep pausing it, rewinding it. I know that I'm going through this at full speed. Right, the second memory that Scrooge is shown then is of his sister. So his sister Fan is Fred's mother. What I want you to do is to find this extract, use those questions there to help you annotate it, and then we can go through it again together. So pause it now and have a go at that, please. Then have a go at doing this extract here using those prompts there to help you. And now we can go through it. Right, the first quote then, dear, dear brother. The use of repetition is showing that affection and also that they have got a close bond. This quote here is showing that Scrooge and his father were not close. So Scrooge's father doesn't really want a relationship with his family, neither does Scrooge in the present day. But Fan is able to change her father's mind. So if you think that Scrooge and his father are quite similar, and then Fred and Fan are similar as well, and it's both Fred and Fan that are able to change Scrooge and Scrooge's father's minds. And because she says that she is able to change his mind and Scrooge is now allowed to return home for Christmas, it's foreshadowing Scrooge's transformation as well at the end of the novel. And she's desperate to be together with him. She says that we're to be together all the Christmas long. So she's very similar to Fred. She's playful, she's childish, and she's really wanting to be with her family all together at Christmas. And that's showing the importance of that, which was particularly important in Victorian times as well. Moving on then, we've got this nice quote here to describe her. She's excited. And then the ghost is acknowledging that as well. She had a large heart, and this is just like Fred. Remember Fred's speech from Stave 1 when he's saying that we should treat people as if they were fellow human beings and not just passengers to the grave. And Scrooge agrees with that. He remembers it. He remembers how much he loved it, and it creates sympathy for him. This is the first time that we see him actually showing love towards anybody, and it helps us understand that he is capable of it. And then he starts applying that treatment of Fred, to how he used to treat Fran. So he feels guilty about it. He knows that he's not doing what he's supposed to do. And with him being his only living relative, he should treat him a bit nicer, really. So then the next memory that Scrooge is shown is Fezziwig. And this memory causes Scrooge to reconsider his treatment of Bob Cratchit. So Fezziwig is the boss, Scrooge is now the boss, and then Scrooge used to work for Fezziwig and Bob works for Scrooge now. So again, pause it here, use those questions to help you annotate those quotes that I've highlighted, and then we can go through it together. And then continue using these questions here, please. Now, if you remember last week, I told you about this description called foil. So this technique is when you've got a character who's presented as an opposite to another. And Fezziwig is another use of a foil here. So he's the opposite of Scrooge and Marley. So let's go through these quotes here then. Scrooge is so happy and excited to see Fezziwig, and it represents, again, a good time that he had in his life before he realised the importance and his almost obsession with money and gain. Fezziwig, verbose is used here as well, which I went through last week, but he's a real jovial person, which is a nice word to describe someone that's kind and happy. And it's this contrast to Scrooge. So at the start of the novella, Scrooge is miserable, he's mean, he's greedy, he's selfish. But at the end, he does start to imitate Fezziwig's styles a lot more. And Fezziwig is generous, he's cheerful, he's charitable, as I put there. He's excited about Christmas as well. And he's sort of recognising the importance of that by shutting up the shop early and getting everyone ready for the Christmas party. In these quotes here then, we've got the fact that Fezziwig is a generous person. So again, a total contrast to Scrooge, a foil of Scrooge. And Scrooge used to think that happiness wasn't created by money. This is a really important quote to remember about Fezziwig. He has the power to render us happy or unhappy. So if your boss is happy, then you are happy. If your boss is mean and miserable, then you are not going to be happy working there. And again, he starts understanding how he has the power to help Bob here, and he feels guilty about the way that he's treating him. So we're seeing that slow transformation into him being a better person. The final memory that this ghost shows Scrooge then is Belle. Belle used to be Scrooge's fiancée, and this causes Scrooge to reflect on the decisions he made in life. So have a look at these quotes here, pause the video and try and annotate this extract for me. And then carry on with these ones here for me, please. Okay, and now we can go through them. So Belle recognises that Scrooge has become obsessed with money and it's taken over his better qualities. She uses the word idle and golden to represent this metaphor of money. But the fact that Scrooge says that he recognises there's nothing on which it is so hard as poverty shows that he understands that money problems were and his understanding of these problems makes his current behaviour in the present day even less sort of sympathetic. If he understands that there's problems in society and he knows that people are suffering, why isn't he using his money and his success to help these other people? And this links to Dickens' life. Don't forget that Dickens did experience poverty, and then Dickens wrote this book to create this social reform to make sure that we could help other people, to strike a blow for that poor man's child. So Scrooge is aware of all these problems, but he's still not doing anything about it, which is echoing that selfish, that solitary as an oyster description from Stave 1. Okay, the next quote then. Scrooge has become obsessed with money, but sympathy is created because this causes the end of his relationship and his engagement. She recognises, Belle does, that he has changed, and she's almost saying that he's turned into another man, which I guess is kind of ironic really, because at the end of the book he does change again and he becomes a better person. The final thing that she says to him, may you be happy in the life you have chosen. This is the turning point in his life. Again, it's ironic because he is not happy at all. He's becoming isolated and solitary and lonely. His life becomes full of greed and selfishness, as I've put there. And this memory here reflects the mistake that Scrooge makes. He's made the wrong decision. He's chasing money rather than happiness. But it does foreshadow his future redemption. Now Dickens really sort of like sticks a knife in Scrooge's back here by showing him after this a scene where Scrooge sees Belle and her family, and she's surrounded by lots of children, a loving husband, and Scrooge starts realising, actually, that is what I wanted my own family. So I've not put it on here, but as you've read it, you'll see that the following scene is showing that the life that Scrooge could have taken, the path that he could have chosen, I suppose. Okay then, so these are the main events of Stave 2. I know that I've gone through that super quick today, but let's make the most of it being a recorded lesson. You can go through, you can rewind it, you can slow it down, you can pause it. Just make sure that you've got all those annotations down for Stave 1 from last week and then Stave 2 for today. Okay, thanks so much. See you soon.